Good stuff.
How you doing?
Right.
All right. Cool, man. Well, look, this is my first interview, Jason. So hopefully it goes all right. Like, I've not really done any of these before, but I mean, what I wanted to do was basically just like interview influencers, fishing influencers in the UK, and your name came immediately up in my sort of radar of people who I wanted to chat to. I see you a lot online. I see you on Facebook a lot. You're very active within the fishing scene. I know that you've got affiliations with Major Craft and FFS Lures, and you've also got your own fishing channel, which is the BFS Fishing UK, and your own reel modding service. So like,
That's
you're
it.
pretty invested.
Major Craft, I left them a few months ago.
Did you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, don't worry. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, just, yeah. It had reached the end of its,
it reached its natural end.
relationship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love Major Craft rods, so yeah, that's a good person to have had an affiliation with anyway. But what kind of sums you up for me is basically I saw an article in the Angling Times called "Big River Predators on Lures," which was a couple of years ago. So I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Duncan Charnham, he contacted me through a mutual friend, and he wanted to do a thing on, just fishing from small boats and stuff on the Thames, etc. And I've been doing it for years. And so yeah, we went out. It was a red letter day, really. I just chose a stretch that I hadn't fished probably all summer. I thought, you know what, why not just hit it in the fresh water? You don't know where the fish are; they're not pressured. Got like a 3 pound plus perch and a 18-pound pike. A few smaller fish between, and by I think I dropped him off back on the bank at like 11:30 or something. It was like, all right, see you later. I was like,
so it's just like an ordinary day fishing with Jason, then, is it?
I wish I would have taken any one of those fish on the day.
Yeah.
But to get them both was it was good. It was good fun, man.
God, man, I wish it was a bit more like that at the moment. It's been, I don't know about you, man, but I've been finding it ultra tough at the moment.
Yeah, it's been difficult, man. I mean, I've started fishing canals a bit more because all the rivers are absolutely trashed now, and I think they're going to be for a good few months.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the canals starting to figure them out. They can be frustrating, but they can also be pretty rewarding, But it's just that thought of, if you fish a clear canal, you can walk for miles, you don't see a thing. All of a sudden, there's a patch of like 20 meters loaded with every species of fish imaginable. And it looks no different to any other section of the canal. Then you walk past that stretch, after catching a few fish, and there's nothing. It's barren again. So when you fish in water that's stained and you can't see them, it's all up here, man. It's all mental. It's a killer, man. It's a killer.
Are you usually filming when you're doing that, or are you just going out?
Not that much. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I mean, I've got loads and loads of footage which I'll never put up with some really big, good, nice fish, just because of the spots. It's a dead giveaway. And then today's climate,
so something which you
got to hold those spots close to your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind helping
effort
people,
to go
with tactics. Yeah, that's it. I don't mind helping people, telling them how I fish or what I use, but as to exact locations and things like that, no chance, man. It's it's half the fun. Well, that's half the hard work, is going and finding the fish.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, something which I'm learning a lot about at the moment, to be honest. So mostly you pretty much solely lure fish. But would I be correct in saying that really you pretty much only BFS lure fish? Is that accurate?
These days, yeah. I mean, I haven't thrown bait in decades, because I used to bass fish for like largemouth bass in South Africa. So I think I started targeting them when I was about 13, and I never went back to bait fishing again. It was just lures. And then I found BFS a few years ago, because I got frustrated fishing with spinning gear, just because wind knots and they're just in the way all the time on the boat. They just don't sit nicely with all the rest of the rods.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So yeah, BFS is a bit of a savior. I think I picked up a fly rod a few months ago for the first time in ages, but that's as far away as I strayed from from BFS,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
And for those people who don't know what BFS stands for, perhaps could you just give a little explanation of what BFS is?
Okay, so BFS, it's like bait finesse system or bait finesse style, depending. The system it's basically being able to cast lures from, sub 2 grams up to versatile BFS around 12 grams, which you can do with a normal bait caster anyway. But it's good that you have that flexibility to cast on the same day. I can go out target trouts on a stream, and then go target pike in a river. Using the exact same setup, just using a trace, because I can cast up to like 4 or 5 inch plastics, or I can cast down to like little micro crankbaits, and so it's basically checking out small lures that you only ever possible on like fixable gear, but using a bait caster. I could go in there.
Am I right? Did it kind of originated in Japan? Was that right?
Yeah, 100%. There were 2 trains of thought for this. Some were like, oh no, it evolved to target trout using bait casting gear. But its true origin started because there's such a huge population of fishermen in Japan. There's so little water that they also fish for largemouth bass, that they were so pressured that they just had to go more and more finesse, and they wanted the sensitivity and feel of using a bait caster but being able to toss tiny little lures, and that's where the Pixie was born. And then that's the OG finesse reel. And then BFS kind of came in from there, where guys are like, okay, let's take this to trout streams and things like that. It's bass fishing in Japan. So thanks
Ninjas,
to the
man.
bass.
Like I watched the videos of these guys, and they're just like, it might as well be some kind of martial art as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like they're kind of like, it's like, and like they've flung it about 100 yards.
The way they load those rods, man, a lot of them, I think they use a lot of them are glass rods, or they use a lure that's over the rating of the rod just to get that load. So they just use a quick flick, and it's just getting that timing, man. I've tried it, and it's, you know what, I'll stick to pitching and flipping, but those a little roll cast, but those flicks they do, it's insane, man. I appreciate it, but I don't have enough time in my life to master it to that degree, and not actually catch fish, because I'm going to spend time cutting the line off more than anything else.
Oh,
I want to go fishing when I go.
I was like, so I've been trying to practice some of that kind of casting, and I think I got, the last time I did it, I hit the fence accidentally when I was doing it. So I was using a little casting weight, hit the fence, and so it sort of completely overran. And I think I probably spent best part of 3 hours trying to unpick braid out of like my reel, and I mean it's a good reel. It's a nightmare, but anyway, you can.
This is like your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
I always have spare line with me, because I mean, no matter how experienced you are, you're going to get backlashes. And recently I've had a few more than I usually do, and they've been like bad ones. Like I've had to cut the line out, and I'm like, oh man, and it's like I've just pulled up the night before, and like every loop I pull that like just is a dead end. I'm like, that's cool. That's the nice thing with BFS. They don't hold a lot of line, so you're not really losing too much. And I never fill them up anyway. I'll probably put about 45 to 50 meters max line on my reels anyway. You're never going to cast that out anyway with the BFS setup. So
unless you're a Japanese ninja,
blindfolded with one finger.
Sense the fish, Luke.
It's nuts, man.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your sort of like fishing, because obviously you're from South Africa. So I wanted to sort of ask, I know you did you compete in bass tournaments over in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I started off just social fishing, then I joined a club, bass club, just a social club as well. They weren't too serious. We'd have like in-house competitions, etc. Then I took it a bit more serious and moved up to a different club where they fished like county style things. We call it provincial. And then you know, from each county, the top 5 guys, it's all works on a point system. That's like most of the world does, except England. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like
We
to
don't
get
take it so
selected for a
seriously, do
national
we?
squad, you have to work your way into it,
Yeah.
So it all goes on points. And yeah, I mean, my first year I fished for them, I qualified to fish in the county, the regional type thing to qualify for the South African squad.
Mm.
I got my ass handed to me that day, man. Like I think like 18 or something, and you're up against these veterans, like they absolutely caned me. I think I came 132nd out of like 200 boats or something. So, but then I got more into the competition fishing, and we had FLW come over to South Africa, and they started like a amateur trail, not full time, but I fished that a lot, man. So yeah,
So
tough
you kind of
conditions, and
like, you came up through the school of hard knocks, basically.
yeah, man. Basically, I learned to think a bit out the box, and just watching these guys fish and watching what they're doing, and I took a bit from here, a bit from there, a bit from there, made it my own. Yeah, and then I've just taken that kind of mindset and knowledge and brought it over here with me, and just started targeting perch and stuff in the same way, just the smaller baits, really. They're pretty similar to bass, except they don't pull as hard and they don't jump as much. But
I know. I was like, well, we were talking about this a while back, but like, this summer I was over in France, and I was just camping really, but we were beside the lake, and they had black bass or largemouth bass in there. Oh mate, I was completely taken by them. I mean, like, I was actually, they're so aggressive. It made me jump sometimes. How kind of, because they would like smash the lure under your
yeah,
feet, and it was just, I mean, you could hear them when we were camping at night time. You could hear them. It'd just be like,
smashing stuff.
yeah, they're just like
Yeah, I know.
slurp
Like,
everything.
oh, get a top water out there.
Yeah,
I love them, man. They're one of my favorite fish species. Well, they're all my favorite fish species ever. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, they're brilliant. Everything's great about them because you don't have to use tracers, because obviously they don't have teeth. You can still
yeah,
go light. And I think, I mean, you'll know a lot more about this than me, but like, from my experience, you put something in their vicinity and you can really rile them up. And, even if they're
yeah.
not feeding, it felt like you stood a chance of like getting
That's
them.
100% it, man. I mean, they can be extremely finicky, just like here, but very rarely, man. I always felt confident that I could at least scratch one fish out if I went fishing. Whereas here, I know like a blank can be on the cards anytime. If it's tough, dude. Like perch and pike are weird, man. Pike especially, when they switch off, it's like every fish in that system will not feed. And you're just like, come on, man. I've covered like 3,000 miles of water, thrown every lure 10 times. And, they'll maybe follow it out and they'll just turn away. And then the next day you go to the same spot and they're ripping the rod at your hand. Like bass, I could always feel I could figure out and squeeze out one or two here or there. I mean, I did have the odd, I blanked a few times, which is normal, but not as much as over here, man. It's hard work. People only see the pictures of the nice fish. They don't see the hard work that goes in behind it. The hours spent blanking and the amount of fuel burned and yeah.
Oh mate, I get it. Like, because when I get a limited amount of time to go fishing, and I'll go on a Saturday morning for an hour or two, and like when you're carting around filming gear as well, and it's tough, isn't it? I mean, like if you're trying to, anybody who does a YouTube channel will agree, I'm sure, with this, that like, trying to actually produce regular content, is a real tough one. You got to put it, there's a lot of unseen hours, a huge number of unseen hours, but so yeah, I think there's this sort of myth that people kind of think that everybody, what you see in Facebook is the best of everybody's, but you don't see the kind of unseen pain and crying behind the camera and
crying and swearing and snapping the fishing rods,
and getting massive backlashes, So, when did you try your first baitcaster reel, and would you ever go back to spinning?
Oh man, I think I picked up my first baitcaster. I was maybe 11 or 12. It was a Shimano Bantam Sitka CI 100. I'll never forget it because we were on holiday visiting some family and we walked into the tackle shop, me and my mom and my dad, and I seen this reel and I was like, oh, And it was like a ridiculous amount of money even then, especially in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I didn't think anything of it. And it was in December as well, which is when my birthday is. So went back to the house, and then my dad went out again, whatever. And my birthday was a few days later, and lo and behold, I got this bait caster and a Daiwa Black Widow bait casting rod. And I mean, I still use spinning gear during the bass thing because BFS wasn't around then, but much to my own detriment, I try to avoid it as much as I could. So I could never really go as finesse as I should have. I would just stick to fishing slightly heavier and more power fishing. But since BFS, I won't.
Not looking back.
I can't even think of it.
Yeah.
I've got one or two in the garage, but they're not mine. They're friends I'm fixing for. So
yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. I grew up using 8 beta reels, spinning reels, and I feel very, very at home with them. But and going on to bait casters, I only ever used them for heavier stuff. But then, and going into BFS stuff, the initial learning curve was quite high. It didn't feel as natural. And because I came from fly fishing as well, I didn't have that kind of flexibility in the wrist. I always locked my wrist out when I was casting, and so, and it was only when I started watching videos from, I think there's a guy called Wazaki or something like that. He's like a guy in New York. He's a Japanese guy in New York, and he sort of broke down how to do some of those kind of Japanese casts, and then suddenly it just started to sort of make sense a little bit, and before you know it, you start to realize how much control you get. I found with the bait caster reel.
And the accuracy, man, it's just that one hand, it's just, and it's there.
Yeah.
Can't be. I mean, on spinning gear, you're going to get a bit more distance on light lures, but it's not what it's about. At the end of the day, BFS isn't a long range game. It's it's close quarter combat, man. It's good fun. It's getting in there, getting dirty, sneaking up on them.
And not having to go like this every time you finish casting as well. Pulling the reel.
Oh, man.
It's like...
And of course, I cast with the other hand and I reel in the other way. So it's even more frustrating with the spinning gear. I used to flick the bell over, catch the line of the spool, click, swap hands. I mean, I still swap hands with the bait caster. I've been casting a lot with the left hand. I can do it now, but not as accurately as the other way. But that's just how I learned. But the time I get it a lot. People are like, oh, why don't you swap hands? Why don't you just? I'm like, dude, it's a fraction of a second. I've never missed a fish because you cast before the cast's even over. You've got the rod in your hand and you click it over. I don't miss fish because of swapping hands. It's not like I'm juggling.
You've touched upon a question which came up. I put some questions out there on the internet. So who was it? I'll just have a look. Stuart Day asked, why do you cast and reel with the same hand? And you think you just...
Well, when I grew up in South Africa, there were no... Well, when I started using bait casters, I don't think there were many left-hand wind retrieve reels anyway. First time I ever seen one is when I came to Europe 16 years ago, man, to England. Like everything, I mean, even the Yanks, you see, that's how they do it. It's just how it's been done. It's just kind of how it is.
Muscle memory.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's how I see it. Yeah.
It certainly doesn't seem to be stopping you catching fish. So
it's not a hindrance at all. I blame the weather, and I blame the cormorants, and I blame the zander, and I blame the otters. They're the problem, not me.
So, what is your go-to method for lure fishing and why?
Okay, my favorite is topwaters. I just love fishing topwater baits just because the take is so visual and it's exciting. You see them, sometimes they miss it, like especially pike, they come right out the water and they'll jump almost over it and land on top of it. And that's my favorite. But my go-to is soft plastics, usually a Texas rig or a Mojo rig. When the cards are up, and most of our fishing here is like that. Except summer when most people kind of go off the lure fishing. they start targeting all the other species. That's when I use top waters, jerk bait, like suspending jerk baits, etc. But yeah, otherwise plastics, you can't go wrong with a Texas rig, man. It's extremely versatile. And if the bottom is not very like snaggy that I'm fishing, I'll just go to a standard jig head even. Just gives me a better hookup ratio. I feel you don't miss a lot in Texas, but those sneaky bites that maybe you pick it up and you think, oh, is it a fish? With an exposed hook, you've at least got a chance of skin hooking it, and then you feel it. You can set the hook. Whereas the Texas, they'll pick it up and they'll spit it out. But that's just my thoughts on the thing. But I mean, Texas rig 99% of the time.
I mean, I use the Cheb rig a lot. That seems to be kind of Cheb rig and with a sort of offset hook. And I like the Z-Man stuff because it sort of sits up, and that seems to be. But I think probably a lot of people. I mean, that's been plugged very hard, that technique, by some of the sort of like popular channels like Perch Finder, for example, and Jason, and what's his name? Forster.
James. Perch Jesus.
Yeah, Perch Jesus. That's it. So yeah, but I like. I don't fish the Texas so much. I fish the Carolina rig quite a lot, but that's only if I think that they're going to be really hard to hook. But.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. Mojo rig, which is basically just a really light finesse Carolina rig. Same thing. When they're getting finicky, I'll put that on, but I make it really short, like maybe 5 or 6 inches. So it's just really just there. But then I'll use a running Texas rig, like unpegged weights, because also it lets the lure kind of, if it's floating plastic, whether it be FFS or a Z-Man, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it'll eventually find its own neutral buoyancy, but the amount of takes I've got, because, you know, when you give it a twitch, it goes, hits a sinker, pops up, comes down, and it just slides back up into their faces. I think a lot of it's a reaction bite on that. But when that's not working, I'll go to straight on Mojo. And just have it up there all the time, so it's just kind of dragging behind. Yeah,
I don't know the Mojo rig, but like I'll have a look at that one after this.
It's basically a Carolina rig, but without the whole like setup of having a swivel, and it's just a really light. You can even do a Mojo rig with a really light bullet weight. Just either use a float stopper to peg the back, or a toothpick, which I used to do, stick a toothpick in and snap it off, and you can still move it around, and it doesn't really cause any damage to the line, I think. No, it's fine. It does nothing. So it's just basically a really light miniature version of a Carolina rig, just no swivels or beads or anything.
I think I accidentally was doing something similar to that, where I was using little float stops, and so it meant. Because what I started using was these little Corda backleads, which basically you can actually unhook because they've kind of got a little groove through them. So I could like go around and I could swap out the weights and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're really cool. It's basically what you're doing. It's basically a Mojo rig, dude. Yeah.
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 Oh, good. Okay.
There we go. See, that's all evolution, dude. Yeah, Carolina is usually those, like when you're going to whip it out miles and you're fishing like deep structure, and it's the Mojo is the way to go, dude. It's especially for the waters we fish, like shallower rivers and canals and stuff. Definitely the way to go for me when they're finicky. I'll even, people laugh. I even Mojo rig crankbaits sometimes, small crankbaits. You get them down there, dude, and they just suspend and they dig in the bottom, and they just floats up and sit there again.
Yeah.
One of my little
why
tips.
not? You know, I saw somebody float fishing with a soft plastic the other day, which I'd never heard of before, but apparently that's something people do as well. I mean,
I saw it in South Africa years ago. Used to know this girl, and her dad had access to this really cool like bass dam. So we'd go fishing all weekend, and he would do that. He would put a plastic about 2 foot below a float, just chuck it out, and we'd be like covering miles around this dam, and he'd just be bagging up. I think they're so curious about this thing just suspending there and moving. What do they do? They got to taste it to see what it is. And he's like, look, and he's like, she's got to bend all the time, and we're like, what?
It's funny because like I've watched like a lot of these videos of underwater perch and stuff like that, and you see them often. They'll sort of come in and they'll investigate it, and it's almost like if it doesn't move too much, then they'll give it a slurp just to see. Whereas I think,
Yeah.
you know, if it's sort of bouncing around doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which fish don't really do, they kind of, it almost scares them off a little bit. So I'm not sort
Yeah.
of surprised that kind of works.
Yeah. There we go.
So next question, favorite species. So perch, chub, pike, trout, or zander, and why?
Largemouth bass.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Like, so I heard somebody say that there was an American base in the UK, and
Yeah.
they brought in some largemouth bass.
Yeah, I researched the nuts out of that, and it did happen, but apparently they're still there. I don't know, it's like folklore now. It's like some myth. But they were definitely in the country. But I don't know what happened further than that. Unless I can find out which base it is and cut a hole in the fence and sneak in there one night.
Yeah.
Just to test the waters. But no, yeah, I'd say my favorite UK species. It's tough, man. I enjoy a big perch is a good thing to see, and it's a great fighter as well. Like those big head shakes and like they strip line. Yeah, it'd probably have to be perch and then trout and then Zed, I say, and then pike. Chub are okay, and then pike are distance. I used to target them a lot, and I think I just fished for them enough. That on the BFS, they're a nuisance. You know, it's just you can sit there for like 15 minutes, and then you know, on like a 12-pound jack, and you're like, dude, just come in, and then you know, just to have it skin hooked in the scissors, you know, you're like, dude, why couldn't the hook have pulled? Then you got to get the thing out, and they smell bad. Pike stink, man. But big pike, yeah, big fan of them. But I don't target them anymore. You know, same with you, man. Since the BFS thing, it's light, it's compact, it's mobile. When I pick up my heavier rods that I used to use for bass or for pike, with a reel and stuff on, they feel so dumb, like and dull and heavy and tip heavy, and it's just like, nah.
I don't feel like you've got the control. I think that's part of it. You know, like after doing lighter and lighter stuff, you know, when you kind of feel like you can give it a little flick and you know that it's going to react like that. Whereas, you know, you're chucking out like a 90-gram swim bait, and it's like there isn't much you can do. You can retrieve it. Like, you're not really gonna. I mean, maybe with jerk baits it's a little bit different. I suppose there is a little bit more, but it's pretty much once it gets too heavy, I think actually I'd say sea bass fishing for me kind of still goes into that kind of level of you've still got control. So you know, in the UK, I don't know if you do any sort of sea bass fishing, but like
I've never done it.
It's
on the cards, man. I'm desperate to land one. I've hooked a couple by accident.
Yeah.
I was fishing for perch in a tidal. I didn't realize the river became tidal. I'd never seen it before, so I was fishing the last lock, and the tide started pushing in. So I cast on. I think I had like a 4-inch fluke or something, and I just felt like a thump. So I set the hook, but it felt like solid, like a nice, like the line popped and everything. Set the hook, and I saw the silver thing, and I was like, "Is Xander in here?" And then I realized there was a bass, but I only had 5-pound fluorocarbon on it. It was like a 13-foot drop. Even when the tide was up, like this retaining wall was massive, and I didn't have a drop net. So that one, the line, it snapped eventually, and I was like, shit. So I tied on another fluke quickly, chucked it in, and I hooked. I thought it was a salmon the way this thing took off, man. I was using like not a BFS reel, but like one of my finesse mega bass things. So it holds a lot more line. And man, this thing it got into the current.
Yeah. They're like great trains, aren't they?
It was amazing, man, and it was a tank of a bass.
Yeah, they can get huge. That's right.
That's lost that one too, because at one stage I even gave my rod to a runner who was running past, like, dude, just hold this, and I was gonna like jump down into the like, but there was no way to actually get down to it, man. I was so gutted, man. I was like, dude, hold the rod tight because it's going to pull it out your hands otherwise, you know. It was like one of my G. Loomis sticks, like an expensive setup. But that was when I saw the power of that, I was like, oh man, I've got to do it. So that's definitely
This,
like
this
keys.
coming summer,
Keys.
come down and like, I mean, I'm no expert, but I mean, I know a few places where they come in and like, we'll give it a go.
Man, I'll take any size bass. I don't mind.
Even the small ones, they go like stink. Right? They're very much like the sort of freshwater bass. I mean, you know, very, very much like, but they're a bit more sort of bit bigger generally and a bit more
A
sort of
bit
feathered.
nastier.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, you will get stripped by those guys. And the takes.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't bother with the BFS gear there. No chance. Nah.
Oh, I've been
It's
thinking
the only
about it.
time
I've
I'll
been
leave it at
thinking
home.
about BFS fishing, but there's like some groins down there where I am. Like, I was thinking it'd be awesome to like hook up on one of those. Like you probably, I reckon you get one in unless it was like.
Yeah, man. You could save them, I reckon.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that one. I tell you what, that big one I hooked. There's no stopping that thing. Yeah, it was just going and going and going. I was like, I
Oh,
was like, I
mate.
could start to see the spool. I was like, ah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man.
You know what? The biggest sea bass I saw this year, I took my daughter crabbing off a local pier, and everyone there was like there must have been about 40 people there, all crab fishing. Just like they're literally just tying on a bit of bacon onto a bit of line and dropping it down. One guy had a little weight. It's got basically it was like a Texas rig, but he didn't know, and like hand lined a little hook with a bit of bacon out, hooked into probably about an 8 pound sea bass just off the, and he was just like holding it there, but he was in the same position as you. He couldn't get down to it, so he was like had it
Yeah.
right up on the surface, but he couldn't get it, so it snapped him off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, right, let's keep on going. So. Okay, you've won the lottery. What's your dream fishing setup? This is going to be quite specialist for you, I reckon.
My setup.
If you had like had as much money as you wanted to throw or at a setup, what would be your dream setup?
I like to say I have it, but my wife's sitting opposite me, so I don't.
This is all hypothetical, just hypothetical.
Oh man, that's tough. There's so many good like BFS setups out there. I think it would definitely be along the lines of Evergreen or KTF Fenwick, rod wise. Be a 1 to 7 gram, fast action. Reel, man, until I find something that beats the Alphas Air, I'm so happy with that reel. Like I would buy it again and again and again, no matter how much money I had. Yeah. I mean, I'd buy a few to like just splurge on them because they look nice. Like, you know, the monoblocks from Megabass and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that would be it, man. That one of those rods, and I'll still stick with the Alphas Air. Like,
I used to look at Evergreen rods, but yeah, the price tag on those bad boys just like sends a shiver down your spine.
And you look at it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
And they've got different ranges of those monoblocks, and you're like, which one? You know, there's like the normal one, which is stupid money. There's like a middle one, which is ridiculous, and there's one that's like astronomical. And you're just like, oh man. You know, the guys that have them, it's like say they're really smooth and they feel good in the hand, but you know, it's
like the
at the end of the day. Yeah.
That's right. I snapped a guy's 10 ring once. And that was like it was like the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. Like we were filming over in Panama, and I hooked into a rooster fish, and like this guy had let me use his 10 roux. It was like a popping rod, and this was like a big rooster fish, and like I snapped it in half. And like
I think I've seen a picture of that rooster fish. It's a monster, man.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I don't know. Like you just saw the blood drain out of this guy's face. He was just like, he was like, so. I think he must. I mean, he put on a really good act, and he was like really nice about it. But like you know.
Oh man. But what can you do, man? It happens.
I know. Just didn't have to happen to me.
Why not him? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay. So, how would you approach a new water? What would be your sort of, if you're going to a place which you hadn't fished before? What would be your sort of like way of approaching it?
Well, first of all, Google.
Yeah.
Do internet research as much as you can on a water that you're going to, not just with maps, but find out any info you can, like if it's club run, whatever, fishing reports, things like that. And then I'd Google it and I'd find the most likely looking areas, try to plot my start from the furthest point to working my way back home, you know, regardless of how far it is from home. But I always like to start the best looking spot, hit it first thing in the morning. But usually I'll start the furthest away I can and then just methodically work my way, whether it's jumping in the car, driving to the next spot on the canal, or, you know, on a boat. Well, on a boat's different, but, you know, I'm talking more like most of us fish canals and rivers and stuff where Google is your friend, whether it be the search engine or Google Maps or Google Earth.
Yeah.
And
I've been doing
there's
that.
no big secret to it. It's just finding areas that you think will hold fish. You know, a lot of Google Maps you can see, especially on the Thames, you can see on the satellite image where it's shallow, where it gets deeper. You can actually see the drop-offs and stuff. You don't need like a topographic map to see the contour lines. You can see it. So that's the kind of thing I'll do. That's how I tackle it. And then I go with tactics that I'm confident with, and that, you know, maybe take 2 sticks with me, one with your reaction lure, like a spinnerbait or top water, depending on time of the year, something that covers water quickly, and then another one with the plastic on it, you know, regardless of what it is. You know, so you can see if there's active fish, you can cover water a lot. When you do find them, you can slow down, toss out the plastics, you know, you get a feel for it. Yeah, that's basically like the way I do
What
it.
kind of features do you look for? I mean, I know a lot of different people have different sort of feelings about things. So, you know, I've always found, for example, entrances from other rivers into main rivers tend to sort of hold fish. What would be the sort of top features that you'd be looking for?
Yeah, definitely those areas are key where you've got, even if it's a small stream coming in or something, because, you know, it's fresh water coming in. It's probably more oxygenated than the main body of water too. So there's always going to be life around that. So those are also key areas I look for. Other things are locks, bridges, especially canal boats and marinas. I mean, they get hammered, but, you know, because every man and his dog does it. Bigger rivers, weir pools, always good, but they get absolutely smashed. And what happens is the fish, they simply move down. So I'll look for secondary spots. I very seldom go right up to a weir on the Thames and fish it. I'll start fishing 60, 70, 80 meters down and find features there, because often those fish, they get pressured. They either shut down and, like we spoke about before, they change their feeding habits and they eat at night, or they just simply know during the daytime, move downriver. And that's basically those kind of areas. I find secondary spots or something that looks like it's nothing, like a nothing bank, but, you know, you've got a steep retaining wall or something. They often hold on those things because they get clobbered up in the weirs.
Well, it was like what we were talking about the other day, wasn't it? Because like we talked before this interview, and like I was saying that I've been fishing a little spot which obviously gets hammered by people, by lure anglers, and so I went back there in the morning. I lost all the fish, but like I managed to start getting bites out of there because I was fishing it basically in the dark as opposed to in the daytime. And you're completely correct. You know, like they changed their their feeding habits because obviously people don't pressurize them at night time. So yeah, that's some good stuff there.
Yeah, they're not dumb, man. They know, like I seen it with bass in South Africa. I mean, I lived in a town called Three Rivers. It was 3 rivers, like one massive river and then like 2 smaller rivers. And you fish those rivers any day in the week and you'll absolutely load up on bass. Go there on a Saturday and a Sunday. It's like death, man. I think, first of all, they associate the sound of all the outboards and the boats and stuff coming. They know that, you know, it's time for a toothache, and they just you know, they become tough. They get deep into the structure. Whereas fish them in the week, and man, you just, oh, it was a joy. Anyway, so that's deviating from the thing. But yeah, fish, they become pressured and they react to it like anybody. You know, if you keep sneaking out of school and getting caught at 10 o'clock in the morning, you might start sneaking out at 11, you know, because nobody's expecting you to. So
yeah, I know exactly. I mean, I remember when I used to fly fish for trout and you know, trout fisheries, and like the prime time was literally that those last few minutes of the day before they closed up, because they knew that like everybody was leaving and that somebody was probably going to come around and feed them. And so like they suddenly switched on. It always happens, that, or at least in my experience. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to have to sort of jump over a few questions. I was going to ask you about your association with FFS Lures, who are a new kid on the block from what I can see, and it's run by Tom Moore. You're fishing with those guys now.
Yeah, I mean, me and Tom used to speak anyway before he started FFS, and we went fishing one down the Thames up near me, and he had brought his first prototypes, which in those days were like a laminated FFS. So they didn't have the air chamber in the tail. It was one half was floating plastic, and then the other half was the color you wanted, laminated. And it was a slimmer profile to the TRD, you know, smaller, same length, but just overall more finesse. And fished them for the day, and they worked well as soft jerk baits too. So I was like, dude, you got something here. Then he just kept on and on, you know, evolving. And man, the thing I like about it is he's local, you know, UK. There's no compromise when it comes to quality. If something looks wrong, he won't. You want to see these extras boxes that he has. Like when we go fishing, he'll bring some tubs, like 25-liter tubs full of plastics that didn't make the grade. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with this? He's like, oh no, the color blade there slightly. I'm like, in the pockets, I'll have that.
Oh, Jesus. Sounds like, you know, the right person to know.
Even if they're not trimmed right, he won't send them out. So the quality is great. The materials he uses are good. And he's always evolving, you know. He's thinking about the next step. He's not just sitting back now being complacent. You know, he's now got himself a CNC lathe, so he's going to do his own mold, so he doesn't have to, you know, fork out like $2,000 for a mold for plastic. You know, I mean, his initial layout until he gets good enough to do it properly may be expensive, but it's all going to pay for itself, you know, within a year or two, you know.
I was going to ask
you. And he's a good guy, and he's got a good ethos and a good ethic about him business-wise. You know, there's so many sharks out there now, people that are just so greedy. You know, he's not like that, you know. It's
no. I mean,
it's not just the products, it's the people behind it, man. I've been approached by a few companies, and I'm just like, thanks, but no thanks. You know, it's just because, you know, their ethics aren't that great sometimes, and it's just this whole thing of like, oh, you fish for X brand, you can't use anything else but X brand. Don't lie. Well, if you do catch on something else, just lie and say it was on brand X. You know, whereas with all the people I fish with, I've told them from the beginning, I'll never be just, say for example, Fox. I won't, you know, okay, I'm sponsored by Fox, I'll only use Fox because I'm limiting myself. You know, I fish for FFS, I still use Z-Man, I use Gambler, I use everything, and I still post about it. You know, that's the kind of freedom that I want, and that's the way forward. That's how it's always been. Like, you look at bass fishing in America, South Africa, you're sponsored by Zoom, but you can still use a Strike King plastic. Nobody complains because it's helping the whole industry in general grow.
Sure.
But people here are a bit short-sighted. I don't think they see that. They just see that I want this now and tomorrow, not 10 years down the line.
I know. It's something I've always had a problem with in this country. I wish that it was a little bit more sort of progressive in the way they do it. I wanted to ask you about, so FFS, what does FFS stand for? Because when I saw it, first of all, I thought it was for fuck's sake. Was that?
So many people do, and they're trolling about it. No, it's finesse floating stick, which is a little stick bait he does.
Right.
So that's what it's named
after.
That's what it was. FFS. So that's why I say using a FFS. But yeah, he used to get trolled about that a lot.
Did he? Oh,
Your company name is, but it's people who are looking for trouble, like, looking for excuses.
right.
But
I
yeah,
didn't know
so
that. I was just thinking, oh, fuck's sake, Lewis. Okay. It's like bold.
yeah, maybe one day he'll put in the bottom finesse floating stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool name, FFS. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's rad. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, FFS finesse floating stick, and yeah, man, he's a good guy.
Yeah. I was looking at some lures yesterday, and I was sort of thinking, I'd contact Tom and see if he'd be interested in making something similar, because I was looking at those, breathe baits. Have you ever seen those? They're like, they make a floating fly basically, and where I fish for chub in the summertime, it would be devastating, something like that. A little kind of like, it's basically kind of like a dry fly, but in a soft plastic. That's kind of what I was thinking. So yeah, maybe I'll give him a chat. Give him a call.
In the future, when he's got his CNC skills going, I'm pretty sure it'll be on the cards, man.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. I'd love something like that. I'll order the whole bunch. Okay, mate. I'm gonna, because we're just running out of time here. So I've got a little question and answer. Oh, actually, I've got a fish facts thing first of all. So this is like 10 questions. So see how well you do. What I'm thinking of doing is seeing how people do in this series, because obviously you're my first interviewer, but I'm going to be doing some other interviews. So we'll see how you stack up against the others. You're going to be setting the bar.
All right.
Okay. So 10 questions. Let's see how well you do. So the oldest known age for a fish: A, 25 years, B, 45 years, or C, 65 years.
65 years.
Yeah.
Going for a coelacanth there.
The Australian lungfish, alive and well at 65 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
So, true or false? Most fish have taste buds all over their body.
Ooh. I'm going to go true.
You're correct. 2 for 2. Okay. So, the oldest fish hook ever found dates back to 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or 42,000 years.
42,000 years. Pretty sure people were hooking and cooking back in those days.
Jesus, I'm going to have to make these questions harder. Okay, you can't get 10 out of 10. Right, you might not get this one. Most brands of what lotion contain fish scales? Lipstick? Fish scales, yeah. So, lipstick, eyeliner, or suntan lotion?
Lipstick.
Damn it. You got it. Okay.
Yes.
4 for 4.
I wear a lot myself, so I know this.
Yeah.
No, that's a joke.
Okay, true or false? The fish in the middle of a school controls the school. So when you see schooling fish, it's the fish in the center of the school which controls it.
I think that makes sense, because you want to protect the clever guy. Have all the others on the outside to get eaten.
It's true. It's true. God. Okay, Okay. The world's slowest fish: the seahorse, stonefish, or green?
Stonefish.
Seahorse.
Oh,
Sorry.
I don't like horses.
Okay. The hottest water a fish can survive in is A. So this is one species of fish, not all species of fish.
Yeah.
A, 33 degrees. B, 73 degrees, or C, 113 degrees?
Jeepers.
This is
I'm gonna go
guys.
B. I'm gonna go B.
B, right. 73. No, sorry, it's 113 degrees. Your run of luck is running out here, and it's a fish called the pupfish, which lives in hot springs and which can reach in temperatures of greater than 113 degrees. Okay,
Wow.
this one you're going to have a time limit on. Name 3 fish beginning with R.
Roosterfish, redfish, roach.
Yeah, okay, that's quick enough. Okay, true or false? Soaking fish in bovril before cooking removes the fishy taste.
I don't know what's worse, the fish or the bovril.
Are you more of a Marmite person?
I am.
That's an answer for D and D.
I'm going to throw it out there because I don't eat a lot of fish. I'm going to say it's true.
Nope, it's not true, but it would probably make it taste pretty disgusting. Okay, and which fights harder, bream, pondweed, or shopping baskets?
Definitely shopping baskets.
You're right, it is shopping baskets.
Yeah, I've had a few of them.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive. You got 7 out of 10 on that.
Oh,
So
I'll take that.
yeah, cool. And to finish off, I've got a couple of questions, one of which you've already answered, from some of the viewers. So I put a couple of I asked for people to give a couple of questions for this interview just on a couple of Facebook sites, and I've got a few. So you've got one here starting out with Tom Moir from FFS Lures. He's asked, when do you decide to change either lure color or pattern?
Well, I'm quite a basic guy, so my lure colors, they're all natural, whether it's a light natural color or a dark natural color. And I go according to the external conditions. If it's early in the morning, I have a dark natural color, or if it's really low light conditions through the day, just because I feel it pops a bit more in the dark. As it lightens up, I'll go through my more natural, lighter natural colors. As for changing lures, I mean, yeah, I do it quite regularly anyway to try to find a pattern. You know, I mean, I might take a FFS, for example, full size, and then if I'm not getting anything in that in 10 minutes, I'll snip a third of it off, chuck it out. And often it makes a difference because you've got to kind of match. They can be pretty specific on size sometimes, like predatory fish. Or I'll go bigger, you know, if I'm getting nothing on the smaller stuff, I'll sometimes put on a 5-inch fluke and chuck it out and then smash it in, you know. So yeah, I change often. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're catching on a certain pattern or a certain lure, there's no point, you know, taking it off unless you really want to get confidence in some other kind of lure and you're catching fish on every cast. You know, that's kind of my thing. Rotate till you find more or less what they want. Try key in on it, and then stick with that till it stops working, and then swap over again. Yeah, I let the fish dictate it, really.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a second question here. This is from Ben Mockery. He said, how many hours do you spend on the bank actually hard at it? He's intrigued to know if your success is down to the venue or just pure grind.
It's a bit of both, really. I don't fish full days that much anymore, you know, having young family and stuff, you know, 2 kids. My wife's really good about it. You know, if I want to go for a full day, I'll tell her and I go, but it doesn't happen very often. I'm usually on the bank for about 2 or 3 hours maximum. I target high percentage hours, or high percentage spots in those hours that I'm on the bank. You know, I don't mess around. I'll say, right, I'm going to hit that marina, that lock, and I'll do that. You know, I won't fish too much to the left or the right unless I have a full day's fishing, where then I'll be more relaxed and I'll, you know, see if the fish are spread out a bit more. But, you know, it all comes from having put a lot of time in on the bank. You get a gut feel for what the conditions are doing or where the fish are going to be. You know, I mean, one canal is basically another canal. You know, you get a feeling for what they're going to be doing on that day. And the only way you can get that experience to make those decisions is by being out on the bank, grafting your nuts off, you know, learning from your mistakes and reaping the rewards, as few or as many as they are. That's all I can say, dude, is put the time in, because eventually you'll have enough feel and enough knowledge to kind of feel that, okay, today's like this, I'm going to go hit the spots and those city spots, and then I'm done. So in the long run, it's the grind, but it pays off. It pays off down the line. So there is no substitute for time on the water, and there's no shortcuts either.
No, apart from dynamite.
Cool. Sweet.
And this is the last question. This is from Ernest Frith. Are you surprised at the boom in the BFS fishing? And do you think the Chinese tackle trade is an influence in fueling this current boom?
Right. So I'm not really surprised, because, I mean, once you've picked up a BFS, there's very few people who, once they pick it up and they get it right, that are going to put it down again. Very few. It's a fun way to fish. It's extremely versatile. It doesn't have to be expensive. You know, you can get into it. And yes, the Chinese market definitely plays a role there. They're bringing out better gear all the time at a more affordable price. You know, but until you've held I'm not even going to say an elder brand. Let's just say that the Alphas Air TW 2020 is your target reel. Now, other reels will cost the same weights as that, but they're not going to do it the same. You know, you've probably seen with your Alphas, the braking there's so little thumb involved. Once it's dialed in, you can just whip it out and it does it all for you. It's very smooth. But I understand not everybody wants to fork out $300 or 280 or whatever you get them for on that reel. And that's where the Chinese market is good, because their stuff is getting better and better. I mean, they're still way behind the Japanese stuff, but it gets you into it. And the way I see it is anything that's getting people into the sport of fishing in general is a good thing, dude. So yeah, definitely. And it's going to keep booming. I remember when BFS first kind of came to the country, and I was pushing like the nuts out of it just because I was enjoying it. Man, the amount of like hate that people were giving out, I don't know why. Like, just it didn't make sense. It's just another discipline. But man, people were like all over it, slating it. And now half those people have BFS rods in their hands. So it's a very addictive.
It's tall poppy syndrome in this country. So if you put your head up above the parapet, somebody will take a swipe at you, unfortunately.
100%, man.
Yeah.
You know, these are like some big names in the game. Boss level 10 type stuff. And you know, it's like, don't worry about it. It's not affecting you at all. Like, just let people do what they want to do is the thing. But yeah, that's BFS for the win.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, look, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I've got to get back to work, but it's been really nice chatting to you. Yeah. It's been really nice chatting with you. Thanks for taking time to
thanks, dude. I really appreciate it, man.
No, it's cool. And yeah, good luck with the rest of your season. I'm sure.
Man, we'll keep in touch anyway, and let me know how you're getting on. I'll let you know how I'm getting on.
Yeah.
And when COVID
next summer, man,
when COVID 3000 disappears, we can maybe go for a fish.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really nice. Yeah, once the whole tier system has sorted itself out and we can move again.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, dude.
Right.
Cool, man. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye, man.
All right.